Good morning, good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to be with you today. And I'm sorry that I cannot be here in person. I visited Yahorina a few months ago in November, but there was no snow that time yet, and I would be happy to visit it again. So, the topic assigned to me is Tourism 4.0, but I have a different meaning of it beyond just using digital technologies and AI tools. In addition to smart tourism solutions, immersive experiences for visitors, and using digital trust solutions, I suggest that the most important implications of modern opportunities should be related to resident-centered tourism development and sustainable tourism solutions, including measuring tourism impacts, managing resources, and community-driven decision-making. So, I suggest that the main goal of tourism development is to improve residents' quality of life and well-being, and we should develop tourism only in the way that reaches this goal. I'll try not to repeat well-known facts. We all understand that tourism brings positive and negative impacts for local communities, and that unplanned levels of tourism development often lead to adverse outcomes. I would prefer to allocate the valuable time of our meeting to share with you some fresh insights on evaluating the impacts of tourism development based on our research findings and the simple or sometimes complex techniques we apply. We are doing many research projects on the impacts of tourism. In brief, we have found that tourism has direct and indirect impacts on residents' health. For me, the most interesting topic is the positive health impacts of tourism. One of our studies conducted in Spain showed that a growth in tourism arrivals negatively influenced residents' health in the short term and had positive effects on health in the long term. We've also uncovered significant effects of tourism development on residents' well-being. And again, they are mostly negative in the short term, but tourism may bring significant positive effects on residents' happiness in the long run. Therefore, it's important to differentiate the short-term and long-term impacts of tourism, which is difficult to do without conducting longitudinal studies. It's essential to recognize that in addition to indirect effects through income, environmental outcomes, access to healthcare, and so on, tourism has significant and direct effects on health and well-being through positive and negative emotions, chronic stress, novelty, social interactions, and some other underexplored mechanisms. Given that health and well-being are among the most important values in human life, I assert that in addition to economic impacts, every destination should measure the social, cultural, environmental, and psychological impacts of tourism on local communities. Another question is how to measure these impacts. This is the statistical framework for measuring the sustainability of tourism. In addition to economic indicators, it includes some environmental metrics like water flows, energy flows, ecosystem services, and so on, and social indicators, civic engagement, accessibility, safety. It's great to establish a system of environmental and social indicators, in addition to economic input-output analysis metrics for any tourist destination. But we know that we often lack this data on the local levels. And to be honest, I'm afraid we'll always lack this data. I suggest that the easiest way to measure the impacts of tourism on the local level or on the regional level is to ask local people and analyze their perceptions by other methods. It's more cost-effective, it provides deeper insights, and it's more meaningful for local communities. And certainly, the easiest way to do this is through resident surveys, interviews, social media analytics, and so on. You may be surprised but residents' perceptions of tourism development often differ significantly from the real impacts. Even on the global scale, we compared the levels of air pollution with subjective levels of people satisfaction with air quality. This paper was published a month ago and found significant differences between objective indicators and residents' perceptions. On the local level, residents' perceptions of tourism impacts depend on community attachment, personal involvement, social demographic, personal characteristics, and many other factors. Furthermore, residents' perceptions of tourism impacts are more important than the real impacts as they influence their evaluations of life satisfaction and contribute to resident support for tourism development. We recently developed and validated a scale to measure residents' perceptions of tourism impacts that can be used at any tourism destination. You can see its simplified version includes only 8 questions, and the simplest approach is to ask local people the same questions every year to see the dynamics of their perceptions. Another opportunity is to use social media analytics. For instance, I've been analyzing data on people's attitudes toward tourism in the US on a daily basis since the beginning of COVID, and now I have more than 3 years of daily data on sentiment toward tourism. And I can clearly see the changes in positive and negative sentiment after each crisis, spikes in news coverage, or government elections. And nowadays, it's not so difficult to monitor resident sentiment toward tourism on a local or national level using social media listening platforms. Next, each tourism practices, policies, and programs should be implemented only after pretesting them with the help of experiments. Each time when we hear that spending an additional $1 million for destination management programs has resulted in improved economic, social, and well-being outcomes, it's not quite accurate. These positive outcomes can be influenced by various external factors, such as the overall economic situation, news sentiment, seasonality, people's mood while answering questions due to good weather, and so on. Only experiments make it possible to evaluate and pretest the real impacts of each sustainable practice or community innovation. It's also simple, but it's essential to randomly assign people to several groups, including a control group, and only then implement practices or interventions for the experimental group and measure their outcomes. And here I see a broad application of the behavioral insights, an inductive approach to policymaking that combines insights from psychology, cognitive science, social science with empirically tested results. Again, without experiments, it's impossible to pretest or evaluate program effectiveness and understand the cause and effect relationships between tourism development programs and the impacts of tourism. Next, tourism destination is a complex system that includes residents, tourists, providers, governments, DMOs, non-profit organizations, and so on. Let's suppose that this is our community graph on the screen. After analyzing the structure, it can be simplified for usability. And through network analysis, we can clearly see the number describing each destination stakeholder, the main players, connections between them, clusters, influencers, and so on. And this will help destinations to understand the structure of destination communities, gather and disseminate information, and evaluate the impacts of tourism on different destination stakeholders. And we can certainly use technologies for real-time measurement of tourism impacts on destination communities to track air quality, water usage, energy consumption, or use predictive modeling to evaluate tourism impacts on local communities, and so on. But again, please do not forget to ask people. We can also use smart technologies, apps, AI tools, social media analytics, and other tools to get residents' feedback. But we should get it. So, the main takeaways of my presentation. First, the main goal of tourism development should be its impacts on residents' quality of life and well-being, rather than revenues, taxes, and other economic indicators. These impacts should be constantly evaluated, including using surveys, interviews, social media analytics, and many other tools. These perceptions are more important than objective indicators of tourism, but at the same time, it's easier to influence them. And now we are fortunate that we can use big data, sensors, predictive modeling, and many other tools in real life. It's also important to apply network analysis to understand the structure of destination networks. And finally, each policy and program should be pre-tested with the help of experiments before implemented in real life. Thank you so much for your attention, and I'm looking forward to meeting you in person. And I'll certainly be happy to share additional insights.